Hello everyone, this is Janessa Mosley with the JM Wildlife Ark, and today I've got Waffles and I've got Pancake. These are two of, I shouldn't say favorites, as I've mentioned in my previous videos, all of the boas are my favorites. However, these are two of the boas that I've had the longest since I started working with boas. They're both from the same litter, as Pancake goes around my neck, which he is not choking me, he's not harming me, he's simply doing that so he can stay on me. They have to use their body and their muscles to be able to hang on to what it is they're holding on to. So in the wild, it would normally be a tree. In this instance, it's me, I'm a person, so it's going to be my arms, my hands, my neck, and they're not constricting me, they're not harming me in any way. That's just how they hold on to me, that's how they keep their balance, that's how they prevent themselves from falling onto the ground. So today I wanted to talk about a couple things. I wanted to talk a little bit about Pancake and Waffles, as they both just got done shedding. And I'd love to talk about the boas and show off the boas right after they get done shedding, as I think that's when their colors really pop out. You can really see how bright and vibrant those colors are. Waffles has a more darker coloration on her sides, and she's got beautiful color saturation. And then Pancake here, it's a little hard to see him on my arm. He also has a beautiful color saturation, and he's got a little bit lighter sides. However, he still has a lot of really nice orange and pink tones to his sides. So they were both labeled the same when I purchased them from MorphMarket. Pancake, however, he's the sire of my first litter, so he did prove out to be super hypo, and he did prove out to be 100% het for call albino. So both of these boas are from the same litter, 2021. One is a male, that's Pancake. The other is a female, that's Waffles, which they're just going all over the place today. And Pancake is a super hypo, that's the male. Pancake is a super hypo jungle, 100% het call albino, 66% het for blood, meaning he either will or will not prove out to be het for blood. 66% chance basically means there's either a 0% chance or a 100% chance that that animal is going to prove for het, and you will not know until you pair them with either a visual animal or another 100% het animal. So I'm hoping to pair Pancake with a blood female one day to see if he proves out het for blood. I do not know as of yet, however, I do think there's a very high chance that he will. And Waffles has not been bred yet. She's not going to be bred until she's about 5 years old, between 5 and 6 years old. I've decided I'm going to wait off on breeding her. Until she's about 5 years old, it's much better to wait. And on that note, one of the topics I would like to bring up is I wanted to give a really big shout out to Kyle Markham from Markham Reptiles. You can find him on Instagram and YouTube. I just recently got done watching his new YouTube video, and I find them very, very informative, especially his last video that he posted. There are a lot of good tips for new breeders and breeders in general, and really a lot of those tips are used for just pet owners as well. A lot of good tips that he goes over between how important quarantining is, how important it is to have enough space, being realistic. Once again, if you're a breeder or a pet owner, being realistic on the animal or animals you're getting, being able to care for these animals. So I wanted to give a huge shout out to him. He's been an inspiration for me on actually making my own YouTube videos. I myself am very shy, socially awkward. I have a hard time pronouncing certain words and certain names. So I tend to not post myself speaking publicly. However, after watching his videos, he's really given me a lot of courage, a lot of motivation to be able to speak and show off the boas and talk more about them, speak more about my own experiences. So once again, huge shout out to Kyle at Markham Reptiles. You can find him on YouTube and Instagram. I will put his I will put his links in the description below. So thank you again so much for letting me give a shout out to you. Thank you again for the wonderful videos you post. They're super informative, a lot of good information. I appreciate you going over your experiences. It helps give me the motivation to go over my own experiences with the boas. So huge shout out to you, Kyle. Thank you so much. And once again, I'll post all his information in the description below. So going back to talking about Pancake and Waffles. Waffles here, and they both recently just got done shedding, so I wanted to show both of them off, show the difference in their color, their pattern. So being that Waffles has not been bred yet, we don't know if she's a super hypo or not. I do believe there are some factors that you can look at to where a boa is more likely to be super hypo. However, you don't actually know until you pair them. And the way you know is if all the offspring come out as hypo, or if some of the offspring come out without being hypo. So if all the offspring come out hypo, then that's how you know that the parent is super hypo. So I don't know if Waffles is super hypo, so she's a possible super hypo. She is a jungle. As you can see, that beautiful jungle pattern. And then she's 66% double het blood call albino. So I do not know if she will prove out het for call albino and or blood. The goal is for her to prove out for both. I'm really hoping that she will prove out for both. However, we will not know yet for at least another, bug flying in my face, for at least another year, probably longer than that. Because I won't be pairing her for another year, and then it's still going to take time for her to ovulate and actually have babies. So I believe boas have babies after 121 days. If I have that correct, I could be getting that wrong. So I will make another video on that, making sure I have that information more accurate. So Waffles here is gonna wait. She's actually the female I'm most excited to pair, I believe, out of all my boas. So Pancake and Waffles, they're 3 years old. They're actually getting ready to turn 4 years old this month. They will be turning 4 years old on June 25th. And they're pretty good size. I don't know exactly how much they weigh or how long they are. They're somewhere between 4 to 5 foot long. Now they're all tangled up, so it might be a little hard to tell who is who. There we go. Waffles has a darker color on her sides. Pancake has a lighter color on his sides. You can also tell as Pancake has a thinner head compared to Waffles. Usually as boas get bigger, the females tend to get bigger heads. I'm not sure why that is. Females tend to get bigger in general, probably to make room for all those babies. From my understanding, boas are oviparous, if I'm pronouncing that word correctly, which means they do give live birth. They do not lay eggs. And having a brain fart. And I don't remember where I was going with that. But yes, they do give live birth. They don't lay eggs. That was actually one reason why I wanted to get into working with the boas. I thought it was very fascinating that they give live birth. and I think that's more of a challenge. I think it's harder to breed boas. Certain boa localities, I believe all boas give live birth, which let me do more research on that to make sure I'm giving that information correctly as well. However, I find that to be very fascinating. So now I remember they're oviparous, if I'm saying that correctly. They give live birth, and they can have anywhere between up to 5 live babies. I believe the biggest litter recorded is up to 75 live babies. Typically, first-time moms have smaller litters. That being said, first-time moms can still have up to 20, 25 or more babies. Aurora, the mother at the dam to my first litter, she had 25 babies, and that was the first time she had ever been paired. She was either 6 or 7 years old. I want to say 6 years old when she was paired. Oh, make sure Pancake doesn't fall off. They get a little bit harder to hold when they're bigger. And my arm's still healing, so I don't want them to put too much pressure on my arm. Normally I wouldn't mind. I'd be using this arm to support them just as much, but I'm still healing, so don't want them putting too much weight. But anyways, Aurora had 25 live babies her first litter, which I was not expecting. I was lucky that she had a litter. Typically, unless people, what is the word? Unless people ultrasound, there we go. Unless people ultrasound their boas, there's no way of knowing if a female is going to give birth to live babies, if she's going to give birth to slugs, if she's going to give birth to DOAs, which is dead on arrival. There's no way of knowing unless you ultrasound, which even then, you have to be able to read the ultrasound properly, make sure that the babies are actually alive inside of mom, that they're growing and developing properly. So there's really no fully way of telling until they give birth. So that makes it a little bit more challenging, in my opinion, and that's one reason I wanted to work with the boas. I find that very neat. I find that very fascinating. I like that they give live birth. That was one reason I wanted to work with them. One key point I wanted to point out in Kyle's video that I was just mentioning, Markham Reptiles, is being realistic about what you're getting into, why you're getting into it, whether that be a pet owner or a breeder. How many animals do you want? Why do you want these animals? These boas can live to be 20, 25 years, possibly even older in captivity. So that's a 20 to 25 year responsibility that we are required to take care for. I find, I shouldn't say a lot, but I have seen a lot of bigger boas, older boas, end up getting rehomed because people can't care for them anymore. They don't have the space. Their lifestyle has changed. Things happen, and they end up rehoming the snake or the boa. And sometimes they end up giving them away for free. Typically, I try not to take in rescues as I want to focus on my own projects. However, I have taken in 2 rescue boas in the past. One of those boas I did rehome. His name was Monty. He was about 10 years old. And beautiful boa, very beautiful, very friendly. He was a healthy boa. I had him for about 6 months, somewhere between 6 to 7 months before I rehomed him. I wanted to make sure he was healthy, he was eating well before I rehomed him. So, and he's in a wonderful home now. He's doing really, really well. The other rescue boa I have, she's still in quarantine. I've had her since February, and she's in her quarantine enclosure. It's a nice 4 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot vision enclosure that we have, that I've got for her. So she's probably going to be in there for at least another few months on quarantine before I decide it's okay to rehome her. That's another thing. When rehoming an animal, whether that be rescuing or if you're breeding and you're selling an animal, the biggest responsibility of that is making sure that the animals are healthy prior to even thinking about rehoming them or selling them. It's very irresponsible, in my opinion, to rehome or sell an animal that's not healthy, or that's sick, or that needs to be properly cared for before it should go into any other home. So that is one of the rules I stand by. That's one of the standards I hold myself very high to. So, and another thing with that too is when breeding any animal, some animals can come out deformed. Some can have major deformities that could affect their quality of life and possibly not allow them to live as long. Sometimes they can have minor deformities to where this doesn't affect their quality of life, and it's just a simple appearance defect. It's just cosmetic. It doesn't actually harm or affect the animal in any way. So that being said, when you breed boas or breed any animal, you always want to take that into account. So when I bred Aurora and she had 25 babies, during when she was ovulating, before she gave birth, we ended up moving, and she had to be taken off of the heat for several hours, longer than 2 hours she was off the heat for. And so when she gave birth, there were 2 or 3 of her babies that had very small kinks in their tails. And one of the babies had such a bad deformity in the middle of his stomach that he actually ended up passing away. So the baby that had the really bad deformity, he seemed to be doing well, but I knew overall that he probably wasn't going to have a good quality of life. He did pass away on his own. However, that's another thing to take into consideration when being a responsible breeder, is knowing what to do with animals that are born with serious health defects. In my opinion, they should either be culled, which is humanely euthanized in a proper way, or they should be rehomed to a rescue or a person who is willing to take on the challenge of a deformed animal. So the other 2 babies I had that had just the minor kinks in their tails, I had them for several months before rehoming them, making sure that they were fully healthy, making sure that they were eating, drinking water, that they were shedding, that they were using the bathroom properly, and they found wonderful pet-only homes. So what I mean by a pet-only home is when I listed them on MorphMarket, I put in the description and on the listing, pet home only. I do not want those animals to be bred or reproduced. Even though the kink is just a small minor kink, you don't want that to get passed down to any offspring. That's another important thing on being a ethical breeder, is making sure you're producing healthy animals. Now, things do happen. There are litters to where most of the boas are healthy, and maybe one or a couple do come out with small deformities, and sometimes that could be something that it may not always be genetic. It could be maybe mom accidentally laid on them. You never know what could possibly happen. So figuring out if it's genetic or if it's something accidental is really important. Now, that being said, I do not know with Aurora's litter if that was accidental, or not accidental, but if the couple babies that had the kinks in their tails, if that was because of an accident, or if that was genetic, or if that was because mom was off the heat. I do not know. I will not know until I pair Aurora again and see if any of the babies have kinks in their tails. That being said, though, I will be pairing Aurora with a different male. So you have to take into consideration the genetics of both parents. Now, it's going to take me a couple years between breeding Aurora again and breeding Pancake again to find out if that kink in the tail, if that's a genetic trait or not. If it's a genetic trait, I will not be breeding those particular boas anymore. If it's not a genetic trait, if it's something that I learned over time is accidental, then I will still continue to breed those boas and just list those babies as pet home only babies. So that's another important thing to take into consideration. Some people will cull, which again, that's humanely killing or humanely euthanizing. Some people will cull any animal or boa that's born with any type of deformity. That's up to the breeder. What's important is that the breeder is responsible for that animal, and by responsible I mean they either properly euthanize it, or if they do choose to sell that animal, they make sure they list it as a pet only animal. There are already enough boas, ball pythons, crested geckos, other reptiles all over the market. There are already enough reptiles in rescues that need homes because people couldn't care for them or decided they didn't want to care for them anymore. It's completely irresponsible to continue breeding an animal you know is not healthy or should not be bred. So that's another thing to take into consideration before breeding. You don't want to just look at the colors or the morph. You want to make sure that the animal is healthy and that they're producing healthy offspring. There's a lot to take into consideration before breeding. And as I mentioned in my previous video, I probably would not have gotten into breeding had I had known all the responsibility that it takes. I love it. I love working with the boas. I love holding the boas. I love learning about them. I love learning about different overall care tips, different overall care tips, the different genetics, the different localities. I love learning about the boas, talking about the boas, sharing information, holding the boas, teaching other people about the boas. It's very relaxing and therapeutic for myself. So in the long run, I do enjoy it. For me, it's been worth the work. It'll always be worth the work, working with the boas. And being able to make videos like this where I can talk about them and share information about them, share what I know about them, share my different experiences with the boas. And I hope I'm getting Waffles and Pancake fully in the video. I get so focused on talking that I don't actually focus on showing the colors and the patterns of the boas that I'm talking about in the video. And one reason I wanted to make another video with Waffles is due to the color of my shirt in the previous video with Waffles. It was a little bit hard to really see her colors as she kind of blended in with my shirt. So now with this black shirt with white patterns, it should be much easier to see her colors and see how beautiful her colors are. She's got a lot of orange, a lot of dark orange on her, and then it's hard to tell. It'll probably be hard to tell on the camera. She's actually got a lot of dark red around the pupil in her eye, or her iris, if I'm saying that correctly, which indicates to me that there's a very good chance that she will be het for blood. She's also got an orange stomach, which is practically the same color as her sides, which also indicates to me there's a very strong chance she will be het for blood. Once again, I do not know. I will not know until I pair her. However, either way, she's a very, very beautiful boa. She's a gorgeous example of a hypo, of a jungle. The reason I got her and Pancake was because I wanted to produce more jungles, or in this case, hypo jungles, and even possible super hypo jungles with this long line pattern. I believe they call that a trophy jungle pattern. I myself really like that pattern. I think it's unique. I think it's different. I like how it's completely connected for most of it. My goal is to make a boa, which I pretty much have. A couple of Pancake's offspring have a completely connected line going all the way from the head down to the body and to the tail. So their patterns are almost completely connected, and they're fairly connected throughout most of the body, but it's not completely connected. So that's one of my goals with them. And another thing too that I'd like to bring up about breeding is you always want to make sure you do research on what genetics can be paired, what morphs can and cannot be paired. So before I got into breeding, I did not know that jungle and jungle could not be paired together. So I had more jungle boas than I knew what to do with. And I ended up talking to a more experienced breeder who had been doing this for a lot longer at one of the reptile shows I had been to locally in California. And that's when I learned from them, no, you should not pair jungle to jungle. That can produce super jungles. Super jungles are likely to be born infertile, or they are likely to be born and not live very long. A lot of them don't make it past birth. Not saying that they can't. There is a Facebook group for super jungles. However, for me personally, why take the risk? Why take the chance? No need in pairing morphs that should not be paired together if the babies are going to come out infertile, or if they're going to barely make it past being born. So they don't live very long lives and they're infertile. Why would someone want to make an animal like that? There are plenty of beautiful boas, beautiful morphs that can be paired together that are not lethal for the offspring, and it's not gonna make the offspring infertile. So a couple combinations I know not to pair are jungle to jungle, motley to motley, and Aztec to Aztec, I believe. I believe Aztec to Aztec. So these are three morphs, 3 genes you want to avoid pairing together, as it's similar with the super jungle, especially with motley to motley. The babies will not make it very long, if they even survive at all, and they do come out infertile. So that's something you want to do your research on. You want to do research on everything, whether you're going to be a pet owner or a breeder. Look into the proper care of the animal, how to properly house the animal, the proper humidity, proper substrate, how to properly feed the animal. Make sure you're giving the animal plenty of fresh water. Excuse me, there's a lot that goes into it, whether you're a pet owner or a breeder. So it's important to do research. There are plenty of good websites, there are plenty of good videos on YouTube where people talk about their experiences and give plenty of information, which that's another thing, is learning from people's experiences. That way you don't have to learn the hard way yourself. That's another really good tip. So always do research, always be mindful, always be realistic about what you're getting into, why you're getting into it. If you're going to breed, make sure you're doing it for the passion, for the hobby, not for money, not for any other purpose. The two reasons that if you're gonna breed, in my opinion, whether that be boas or any animal, there's 2 main reasons you want to do it. You want to do it ethically and responsibly. So by that I mean you want to do it for the animal. What are you doing to benefit the animal? Why and or how are your breeding projects, are your breeding plans benefiting the animal? Making sure the animals are healthy, making sure they're well cared for, making sure that they're happy. And the next reason, if you're going to breed, is doing it for yourself. And when I say that, I mean, in my opinion, you don't want to breed to make money. You don't want to breed to try to get popular. You don't want to breed because you're bored and you need something to do. No, there are a lot of good reasons to not breed. As a matter of fact, that would actually be a good topic for a whole separate video, is reasons not to breed boas, and really a lot of animals in general. It takes a lot of responsibility. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of finances. So the biggest part is being responsible and being an ethical breeder. So 2 number things: responsibility, breeding ethically, and doing it for yourself. Having projects because these are projects that you want to do because it's your passion, it's your hobby. Don't do it for somebody else. Don't do it to make a quick buck or to try to make money. Don't do it because you're bored and you need a new temporary hobby. No, these are living, breathing animals. And as I mentioned earlier, these boas can live up to 20, 25 years in captivity, possibly even longer. So it's not something you just work with while the boas are young or while they're small, and then, oh, I don't know what to do, I gotta get rid of them. No. Just like any responsibility, whether that be an animal or having children. I myself don't have children as of yet, but I'm gonna have to guess it's the same, being responsible for your child until that child reaches maturity as an adult. Animals, even though they reach maturity as an adult, we're still responsible for them for their entire lives. And if we're not, if we're not capable of having the animal for their entire lives, because I do understand things happen in life that are unexpected, we are at the very least responsible for making sure that these animals go into good homes where they will be well cared for. Not just giving them away for free or selling them for a quick buck, or, oh, I have to move soon and I need the animal gone. Well, you probably should have figured that out before you had to move. It's really important for people to be accountable for their actions. And a big part of that is being accountable for your pets, being accountable and being responsible. So that's another thing I really wanted to point out in this video as well. So, for example, I plan on keeping my boas, all of my keeper boas, like Pancake and Waffles, for their entire lives. Even after they're done producing, which I only plan for my females to have 3, maybe 4 litters at the most, because I do not want to overbreed my females. I do not want to overproduce boas. Pancake wants to come up. There's a shelf that I have the phone camera on, and he's really fascinated with it. He wants to go slither up there. So, totally lost me off track with Pancake. Get a little bit easily sidetracked, but breeding responsibly. So, yes, owning the boas their entire lives. My females only having 3 to 4 litters, no more than that. I, once again, don't want to overbreed them, don't want to overproduce them. And I don't just look at them as money sources. I look at them as living, breathing animals. And I want them to live the longest, healthiest, happiest lives possible. And I want to provide that for them for as long as I can. Now, if I'm ever in a position to where I can't do that, if something happens in life, then I'm going to make sure I do everything I can to make sure they do find good homes, as that's what a responsible and ethical, not only breeder, but pet owner should do, in my opinion. So, I love Pancake, I love Waffles. I actually drove all the way from Northern California. This was when I lived in Kelseyville, so I drove from Kelseyville, California, all the way to Anaheim, California. So Northern California to Southern California to pick them up. I picked them up at separate times. I did pick them up from the name of the facility. I will not be mentioning the name of the facility due to me no longer supporting them for several different reasons, which I have mentioned in one of my previous videos. So before I was comfortable with shipping, I would drive to pick up my boas. So I drove from Kelseyville, California to Anaheim, California in one day to pick up Pancake. And I love Pancake. He's a sweet boy. And I did the same with Waffles. I actually drove to the Anaheim Reptile show in 2023. Yeah, the Anaheim show in 2023 to pick up Waffles. And while I was there, I actually got to hold her around my neck She was super calm, super relaxed. She was about 2 years old when I got her, so she's coming up on 4 years old. Pancake was a year old when I got him. So they're from the same litter. I got them from the same place. I just got them 1 year apart. And it was actually really fun walking around the Anaheim show with Waffles, being able to show her off. And a lot of people were interested in her. A lot of people were asking if she was available, and I kept saying, no, she's not, no, she's not. So she looks even more incredible in person than she does through pictures and videos and over the camera. She's got a lot of red and pinks and orange on her face all the way throughout her body. And same with Pancake too. He's just a little bit lighter in color, as you can see. So it's really neat to see the differences between them. So I'm really hoping that Pancake proves out het for blood. Really hoping Waffles proves out het for blood and call albino. My goal is to make some really nice jungle sun dragons with these two. Jungle sun dragons and sun dragons without jungle. However, the only way I can do that is if both of these guys prove out double het for both blood and call albino. So the male, that I will be pairing with Aurora is a hypo blood 66% het call. I'm going to be pairing him with Aurora this coming October that I mentioned in my first video. And if he proves out het for call, then I will be pairing him with Waffles probably the following year when she's old enough. That way he's a visual hypo, he's a visual blood, and if he proves out het for call, he will be 100% het call. So that will help me let me know what Waffles is or is not het for, which would be fantastic. So they will either make double hets themselves, or they will make visual sun dragons, which would be the ultimate goal. I want to work with sun dragons personally. I love the color. I love that orange color saturation. I love how beautiful and vibrant they are. They really hold on to that color into adulthood. That being said, it does depend on the quality, whether that be a sun dragon, which is a visual hypo, blood, and call albino, or that be a visual red dragon, which is a visual blood and call albino with no hypo. So both of them have a beautiful orange color. It depends on the quality. So that's my overall goal on what I would like to produce for myself and what I would like to produce in the long run. And then I would like to add IMG to that as well. So I have a couple different projects. It is going to take me a few years to work on these projects, to accomplish these projects, to see what my boas are or are not het for. I myself am a big believer in hets. Not everyone is. I'm a big believer in the het depending on the quality and depending on the visual color and markings of the boa. So we will see. Very, very excited. I'm probably going to wrap it up for this video. Hopefully I got everything out for today. Hopefully I pronounced my words and my names correctly. If not, I do apologize. And hopefully I got footage of both Waffles and Pancake where you can fully see them, see their color and their pattern. They both just got done shedding. They will both be turning 4 years old on June 25th. I may or may not make another video with them. I want to try to show off the other boas as well. I know I tend to talk about these guys a lot. I did not produce them myself. They are two of my signature boas, not that I produced myself, but as Pancake being the first male that has sired for me, and Waffles being the female I'm the most excited to pair. So Aurora, the female that had the first litter with Pancake, she's also one of my signature boas. I did not produce her either. So once again, by signature, I just mean boas that have produced for me first. So I would like to get it to where the boas that they produce, that I've produced myself, produce their own boas, as I have mentioned in previous videos. So I think that's about it for today. I don't know when I'll make my next video or what my next topic will be about. If you guys have anything you want to add, anything you want to say, please feel free to comment. I love reading the comments. If you guys want to reach out to me personally, you can message me on Instagram or Facebook. I'm more than happy to answer questions and interact. I love talking about the boas, whether that be their overall health, care, humidity, heating, substrate, enclosures, different genetics, different breeding projects. You're more than welcome to reach out to me anytime. So thank you all for watching my videos. I greatly appreciate it. I hope you all have a wonderful, a beautiful, and a blessed day. And I'll see you later, guys. Bye, everyone.